The salt spray still burns my eyes when I remember that first dawn over the Pacific. My name is Admiral Marcus Chen, former commander of Terra's naval defense fleet, now something else entirely. The blue-skinned xenos didn't just take our oceans, they transformed them into something beautiful and terrible. You think that makes me a traitor, but you don't know what I've seen beneath those alien waves. The Tau called it Dalith Kauyon, the patient hunter's trap. While the Imperium fought their ground wars and void battles, these aliens were already swimming in our deepest trenches, building cities where no human had ever dared to venture. They turned our own planet's lifeblood against us, and the worst part, some of us welcomed it. The greater good isn't just propaganda when you're drowning in the darkness of the 41st millennium, and these xenos offered us something the Emperor never could: hope floating on alien tides. Chapter 1. The Deep Blue Deception. I should have known something was wrong when the whales started singing in perfect harmony. Standing on the observation deck of the Righteous Fury, my flagship patrolling the Antarctic Ocean, I watched through the reinforced glass as massive shapes moved beneath the ice. The bio-auspex readings showed standard Terran cetaceans, but their behavior patterns were different, coordinated, almost tactical. "Admiral Chen," called Lieutenant Morrison from the sensor station, his voice carrying that particular tension that meant bad news. "We're detecting unusual thermal signatures from the Mariana Trench. Deep thermal blooms, but they're not volcanic in nature." I turned from the window, my naval greatcoat swishing against the polished adamantium deck. The Righteous Fury was one of Terra's finest ocean patrol vessels, a kilometer-long cathedral of Imperial engineering that could hunt down heretic submarines or surface to engage aerial threats. We'd been tasked with monitoring the Pacific Deep Zone for the past 3 months, ever since strange reports started filtering in from fishing vessels and merchant convoys. "Show me," I commanded, walking to the tactical display table, where green holographic projections painted a 3-dimensional map of the ocean floor. What I saw made my blood freeze. The Mariana Trench, Earth's deepest scar, was glowing, not with the red heat of magma, but with a cool blue radiance that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The thermal signatures formed patterns, geometric, purposeful, alien. "How long has this been building?" I asked, studying the data streams that scrolled past in high Gothic script. "Seismic monitors show the first anomalies began 14 days ago," Morrison replied, his pale face reflecting the blue glow of the display. "But Admiral, there's something else. The temperature readings, they're not random. There's a mathematical progression to them." I leaned closer, my weathered hands gripping the edge of the display table. At 57 years old, I'd served the Imperial Navy for 4 decades, fought in the Gothic War, and seen horrors that would drive lesser men to madness. But this geometric precision in the depths of Terra's own oceans made my veteran instincts scream warnings. "Mathematical how?" I pressed. Morrison's fingers danced across the control interface, and the display shifted to show temperature graphs over time. "The thermal blooms follow what appears to be a Fibonacci sequence, Admiral. Each burst is precisely 1.618 times stronger than the previous one, and they're spreading, the golden ratio." I'd learned about it in my academy days, but seeing it manifested in the deepest places of Terra felt like blasphemy. The Emperor's dominion over humanity was absolute, but here was something suggesting intelligence, alien intelligence, operating in our very oceans. "Any word from the orbital defense stations?" I asked, knowing that if this was a xenos incursion, the massive weapons platforms circling Terra would be our first warning. "Negative, sir. All orbital auspex sweeps show clear void space. Whatever this is, it's not coming from above." I nodded grimly. That meant it was already here, had been here, perhaps for longer than any of us wanted to imagine. The thought that alien forces could have been operating beneath Terra's waves while the Imperium fought wars across the galaxy was troubling. "Signal the Adeptus Mechanicus facility on Madagascar," I ordered. "I want every tech priest with oceanic expertise analyzing this data. And contact the Departamento Munitorum. we may need additional naval assets. Yes, Admiral. Shall I also contact the Inquisition? I paused, considering. Involving the Inquisition would mean acknowledging that this situation might be beyond the Navy's capabilities. It would also mean scrutiny, investigations, and potentially being declared complicit in whatever was happening if we failed to contain it. Not yet, Lieutenant. Let's gather more intelligence first. Over the next 6 hours, our sensors painted an increasingly disturbing picture. The thermal signatures were spreading along the Pacific Ring of Fire, following underwater mountain ranges and deep ocean trenches. Each new bloom appeared exactly where seismic activity was strongest, as if something was using Terra's own geological structure as a transportation network. Then the first contact came. I was in my quarters, reviewing tactical manuals on underwater warfare, when the ship's Vox system crackled to life with an emergency alert. All hands to stations. Unknown contacts rising from the deep. Admiral to the bridge immediately. I ran through the corridors of the Righteous Fury, past crew members securing battle stations and loading torpedo tubes. The ship's machine spirit hummed with anticipation, its ancient systems preparing for combat. On the bridge, the main display showed a sight that challenged everything I thought I knew about Terra's oceans. Rising from the Mariana Trench, their forms graceful and alien, came vessels unlike anything in Imperial records. They were beautiful, in a way that made my soul recoil. Smooth, organic curves suggested they had been grown rather than built, their hulls shimmering with the same blue radiance we'd detected on the thermal scans. Each ship was roughly the size of an Imperial frigate, but they moved through the water with a fluid grace that suggested advanced gravitic manipulation. Count and classification, I demanded, taking my position at the command throne. 12 vessels, Admiral. Configuration unknown. They're not matching any Imperial, Orc, or Chaos designs in our databases. I stared at the alien flotilla as they arranged themselves in what looked like a defensive formation. They weren't attacking, weren't moving aggressively. They were waiting. Open a Vox channel on all frequencies, I ordered. Let's see if they want to talk. The response came immediately, not through our Vox system, but directly into our minds. Every person on the bridge gasped as alien thoughts touched their consciousness, not violating, not invasive, but somehow polite, like a gentle knock on a door. Greetings, warriors of the humans. We are the Kor'vattra of the Taucha Sept. We wish to speak with your leader. The psychic communication was accompanied by what I can only describe as emotional undertones, patience, curiosity, and something that felt almost like respect. I'd heard of the Tau before, of course. Xenos from the Eastern Fringe, technologically advanced, but supposedly contained by Imperial forces. What I hadn't expected was for them to be swimming in Terra's deepest waters, speaking directly into our minds, with a courtesy that felt more civilized than most Imperial communication. I am Admiral Marcus Chen, commanding officer of this fleet, I said aloud, hoping they could somehow perceive my words. State your intentions in Imperial space. The response came with the same gentle touch, but this time accompanied by visual images that appeared in our minds. Vast underwater cities, humans and Tau working together. Oceans teeming with life and technology in perfect harmony. We claim no territory that your kind use, Admiral Chen. The deep places call to us as the void calls to you. We have watched your species fight across the stars while ignoring the treasures beneath your waves. We offer partnership, not conquest. Partnership with xenos is heresy, I replied. But even as I spoke the words, part of me was studying those mental images. The underwater cities looked peaceful, advanced. Nothing like the brutal efficiency of Imperial architecture or the corrupt decay of chaos-touched settlements. We understand your loyalty to your Emperor, Admiral. We do not ask you to abandon it. We ask only that you consider what could be achieved if the children of Terra learned to swim as well as they fly. I looked around the bridge at my crew. Some showed the expected disgust at alien contact, but others, especially the younger officers, seemed intrigued. The Tau's psychic communication carried emotional honesty that was impossible to fake. And what they projected wasn't malice or superiority, but genuine hope. "You've been operating in our oceans without Imperial permission," I said. "That alone is an act of war. For 7 of your years, Admiral, we have built 12 cities in the deepest places where your kind cannot reach. We have harmed no human vessel, taken no human life. We have even assisted when your ships faced natural disasters in the deep waters. 7 years. The revelation hit me like a torpedo to the hull. These aliens had been beneath our feet for 7 years, and the Imperium hadn't detected them. Either their stealth technology was beyond anything we understood, or... "You've been helping human vessels?" I asked. "The ocean does not distinguish between human and Tau when the storm winds blow, Admiral. 347 times we have aided your ships in distress. We have asked for no recognition, no payment. The sea connects all life. I made a decision that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Stand down weapons," I ordered. "Maintain defensive positions, but do not target the alien vessels." "Admiral?" Lieutenant Morrison's voice carried shock and concern. "They've had 7 years to attack us, Lieutenant. If they wanted Terra's destruction, they could have poisoned every ocean on the planet by now. I want to hear what they have to say." The next hour would change everything. I thought I knew about loyalty, duty, and the Emperor's vision for humanity. As the Tau watercast representatives materialized on our bridge through some form of advanced teleportation technology, I found myself face to face with beings who challenged every Imperial doctrine I'd been raised to believe. They were tall, graceful, with skin the color of deep ocean water and eyes that held intelligence and compassion in equal measure. When they spoke aloud, their voices carried the same gentle reasonableness that had touched our minds. "Admiral Chen," said their leader, a female whose ceremonial robes seemed to shift like flowing water. "I am Por El Mayen, speaker for the deep tides. We have watched your species struggle with the gift of Terra's oceans for millennia. You fight for the stars while ignoring the 3/4 of your world that could sustain billions more lives in harmony and abundance. The Imperium of man has dominion over all of Terra," I replied, but my words felt hollow even to me. "And yet your people die in hive city slums while vast underwater territories remain empty and unused," Mien responded gently. "We do not seek to rule your kind, Admiral. We seek to teach you what the water spirits have taught us, that life flourishes best when it flows together, rather than fighting against the current." Looking into her alien eyes, I saw something that the Imperium had beaten out of most of us decades ago: hope for a better future. The greater good that the Tau preached wasn't just propaganda. For them, it was a lived reality, a way of existence that had transformed these oceans into something beautiful. And in that moment, staring at impossible alien cities through their shared memories, I began to understand why some humans might choose to swim in alien waters rather than burn in Imperial fires. The first seeds of my transformation had been planted in the deepest places of Terra's soul. Chapter 2. Strange Tides. Personal Journal of Admiral Chen. Classification Eyes Only. The dream started 3 days after first contact. I found myself swimming in oceans that had never existed on Terra. Waters so clear I could see for kilometers in every direction. Cities of living coral and bioengineered metal rising from the sea floor like hymns to harmony. In these dreams, I breathed water as easily as air, and the gentle current carried voices speaking of cooperation, of growth, of species learning to live as one ecosystem rather than competing predators. The worst part? When I woke, I felt disappointed to be breathing air again. "Admiral, you asked to be informed when the next wave of thermal signatures appeared," Lieutenant Morrison said, jolting me from my reverie. I'd been staring out at the Pacific for the better part of an hour, watching the alien vessels maintain their respectful distance from our fleet. "Show me," I said, straightening in my command chair. The tactical display revealed what I'd begun to expect and fear in equal measure. New blue signatures appearing along the Pacific coast, from the Bering Sea down to the waters off Chile. Each new appearance followed the same mathematical precision, the same careful placement in areas where human activity was minimal. They're not just claiming territories, I realized aloud. They're connecting them, building a network. Should we alert Terra's Defense Command? Morrison asked, though I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. The young lieutenant had been present during our initial contact with the Tau, had felt the same psychic touch that made their intentions feel honest. Before I could answer, the familiar gentle pressure touched our minds again. Admiral Chen, we request permission to share more with you and your crew. There are things beneath these waters that threaten both our peoples. The deep darkness stirs, and unity may be our only hope against it. Images flooded our consciousness, not the peaceful underwater cities this time, but something else. Ancient, writhing shapes in the deepest ocean trenches, things that predated both human and Tau civilization, entities that fed on conflict and suffering. "Emperor, preserve us," whispered Communications Officer Vale, her face pale with the vision of tentacled monstrosities lurking in abyssal depths. "Are those?" "Demons," I finished grimly. The creatures in the Tau's shared memory matched descriptions from classified Inquisition reports. Entities from the warp that could manifest in real space wherever negative emotions reach sufficient concentration. Your species' constant warfare has awakened things that should remain sleeping, Admiral. The oceans of Terra have become a hunting ground for creatures that feast on despair and rage. We have been fighting them in the deep places for 3 of your years. The revelation hit like a depth charge. While the Imperium fought its endless wars across the galaxy, alien forces had been protecting Terra's oceans from demonic incursion. The irony was almost too bitter to contemplate. "Why should we trust you?" I asked. But even as I spoke, I was studying the tactical implications. If demons were manifesting in Terra's deepest waters, every Imperial doctrine said we should purge the oceans with plasma bombardment and pray to the Emperor for forgiveness. Because, Admiral Chen, we offer proof through action rather than words. The water around our ship began to change. What had appeared to be empty ocean suddenly revealed itself as something else entirely. A massive Tau installation, kilometers wide, that had been hidden beneath some form of advanced cloaking field. But it wasn't the technology that made me gasp. It was what the installation was doing. Streams of purified water flowed from biomechanical processes, cleaning decades of industrial pollution from the surrounding sea. Fish swam in patterns that seemed almost choreographed, their movements suggesting the presence of some form of psychic harmony. And in the center of it all, contained within energy fields that hummed with benevolent power, were the withered corpses of things that definitely weren't from the material universe. "They're purifying the ocean," Morrison breathed, "and destroying demons at the same time." The Tau installation wasn't just a military outpost, it was a healing center, a place where the damage inflicted by 10 millennia of human industry was being slowly, carefully repaired. I watched schools of fish swim through areas that had been dead zones only months before, their scales gleaming with health that spoke of waters cleaner than Terra had known since the dark age of technology. The greater good encompasses all life, Admiral. When the ocean suffers, all who depend upon it suffer. When the sea is healed, all prosper. I stood slowly, my old bones protesting the movement, and walked to the main viewing port. Below us, the Tau installation continued its work, biomechanical systems processing pollutants with an efficiency that would make tech priests weep with envy. But more than the technology, it was the philosophy that challenged everything I'd been taught. The Imperium taught that xenos were to be destroyed on sight, that cooperation with alien species was heresy punishable by death. But here were beings who had spent 7 years protecting Terra's oceans from demonic corruption, while simultaneously healing the damage that humanity had inflicted over centuries of thoughtless exploitation. "Admiral," called Tactical Officer Reyes from his station, "we're receiving multiple Vox transmissions from Imperial Naval Command. They're demanding a full report on our Unusual contacts. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. The bureaucratic machinery of the Imperium was beginning to turn, and once it focused on this situation, there would be no room for nuance or understanding. The response would be swift, brutal, and final. "What's our estimated time before reinforcements arrive?" I asked. "Based on deployment patterns and void ship transit times, 18 hours, sir. Maybe 20, if we're lucky. 18 hours to decide the fate of Terra's oceans. 18 hours to choose between Imperial doctrine and the evidence of my own eyes." "We are aware of your dilemma, Admiral," came the Tau voice, gentler now, tinged with what felt like sympathy. "We do not ask you to betray your oaths to your Emperor, but we ask you to consider what serves humanity better, blind adherence to doctrine or cooperation that could heal your world. And if we refuse, if we follow Imperial protocol and attempt to purge your installations?" The response came without anger or threat, just sadness that felt genuine. "Then the deep darkness will claim these waters within a solar year, Admiral. The demons we have been containing will spread throughout Terra's oceans. Your world will become a spawning ground for entities that will make your current wars seem like children's games." I looked around the bridge at my crew. These were good Imperial citizens, loyal servants of the Emperor who had followed me into the depths of the Pacific without question. They deserved to know what I was beginning to understand, that sometimes loyalty to humanity and loyalty to Imperial doctrine weren't the same thing. "Lieutenant Morrison, bring up the casualty reports from the Hive Fleet Kraken incursion," I ordered. "Sir?" "The reports, Lieutenant. How many Imperial worlds were lost because we couldn't adapt our tactics quickly enough?" Morrison's fingers moved across his console, and holographic displays showed the grim statistics. 17 worlds devoured, billions of Imperial citizens consumed by alien horrors, entire subsectors turned into lifeless rocks. 47 billion souls, Admiral, and that's just the confirmed casualties. I nodded grimly. And how many of those deaths might have been prevented if we'd been willing to work with the Elder warnings about Hive Fleet movements? The question hung in the air like incense smoke. Every officer on the bridge knew the answer, though none would speak it aloud. Imperial pride and xenophobic doctrine had cost humanity more lives than any alien invasion. "Your species learns quickly when survival is at stake," observed the Tau voice. "We have studied your history, Admiral Chen. Humans are capable of remarkable adaptation when they choose cooperation over conflict." "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. The answer came not in words, but in a shared vision that encompassed the entire bridge crew. We saw Terra's oceans as they could be, vast underwater cities where humans and Tau worked together, massive kelp farms feeding billions, clean energy flowing from tidal generators and thermal vents. We saw human children learning to swim alongside Tau youngsters, both species teaching the other their unique perspectives on life and growth. But most importantly, we saw Terra's oceans free from the taint of chaos, protected by a network of purification installations that maintained the psychic balance necessary to keep demons from manifesting in the deep places. "A joint protectorate," I said, understanding flooding through me. "You're proposing that we work together to defend Terra's oceans." "Not defend, Admiral. Heal, transform, make them into something worthy of the birth world of humanity." I walked to the communication station, my mind racing through possibilities and consequences. "Officer Vale, can you establish a secure channel to Naval Command? I need to speak with Lord Admiral Ravensburg personally." "Yes, sir, but it will take several minutes to encode through the proper authentication protocols." "Do it. And Vale, make sure the recording systems are active. I want every word of this conversation documented." As Vale worked to establish the connection, I found myself thinking about the oath I'd sworn 40 years ago when I first received my commission. To serve the Emperor, to protect humanity, to die before allowing harm to come to Terra. The question was, did protecting humanity mean following orders, or did it mean making the hard choice to preserve Terra's future, even if it meant working with xenos? "Your Emperor is far from these waters, Admiral," the Tau voice observed gently. "But your world is here now, in need of healing. Sometimes the greatest loyalty requires the courage to chart new courses. The secure channel crackled to life, and Lord Admiral Ravensburg's stern voice filled the bridge. "Chen, what in the Emperor's name is going on out there? We're reading massive energy signatures from your position, and your last 3 reports have been vague." I took a deep breath, tasting salt air and possibility. "Lord Admiral, I'm transmitting full tactical data now. We have a situation that requires immediate discussion with the Planetary Defense Council and possibly higher authorities." Higher authorities? Chen, you're starting to worry me. Are we talking about Inquisition involvement? I looked out at the Tau installation, watching it heal centuries of damage while holding back the forces of chaos itself. "Sir, we may be talking about the future of Terra itself. The next few hours would determine whether humanity was ready to learn new ways of swimming in the vast oceans of a galaxy that demanded adaptation to survive." As I began my report to Imperial Command, I could feel the weight of history settling on my shoulders. Sometimes the most loyal thing a servant could do was to save his master from his own worst instincts, even if it meant swimming in alien waters. Chapter 3. The Depth of Truth. Classified Imperial Naval Report. Authentication Code. Chen 997 Alpha. Lord Admiral Ravensburg. Priority Extremis. The truth about Terra's oceans is darker and more complicated than any of us imagined. 18 hours after my initial contact with the Tau forces, I have information that fundamentally challenges our understanding of Terra's security situation. What follows is my official report, though I suspect it will be my last as an Imperial Admiral. The Tau delegation agreed to a full intelligence exchange, provided we maintained communication with Imperial Command throughout the process. They wanted no accusations of coercion or mind control. Everything they shared was to be verified by our own sensors and documented by our own crew. What we discovered in the depths of the Mariana Trench will haunt me until the day I die. "Admiral, you need to see this," called Tech Adept Voss from the deep scanning station. The red-robed servant of the Omnissiah had been analyzing the Tau data for 6 hours, his mechanical implants interfacing directly with our ship's machine spirit to process information at superhuman speeds. "What have you found, Adept?" "The Tau installation data includes geological surveys going back 7 years, Admiral. But sir, there are structures down there that predate human civilization. Structures that are definitely not Tau in origin." I felt ice forming in my veins. "Show me." The main tactical display shifted to show deep scan imagery of the ocean floor, 7 miles beneath the surface, where no human had ever ventured. What I saw challenged everything I thought I knew about Terra's history. Vast stone structures, their architecture, neither human nor Tau, lay scattered across the abyssal plain. They were clearly artificial, massive pyramids and temples covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. But it was the energy readings that made my breath catch. "Warp resonance, Admiral," Voss reported, his mechanical voice carrying unusual emotion. "These structures are resonating with psychic energy, drawing power from the immaterium, and they're active. Active how?" Before Voss could answer, the Tau speaker Yen materialized on our bridge again, her expression grave. "Admiral Chen, you now see what we have been fighting for 3 of your years. Those structures are not abandoned ruins. They are summoning beacons, drawing entities from the Sea of Souls into your material realm." "Why didn't you destroy them?" I demanded. "Because destruction would only strengthen them," Yen replied sadly. "These temples feed on violence and negative emotion. Every weapon fired near them, every death that occurs in their presence, makes them more powerful. The only way to contain them is through harmony and purification, emotions that are anathema to the entities they serve." Lieutenant Morrison had gone pale. "Admiral, if those structures have been active for years and we didn't know about them," I nodded grimly, "then Terra itself has been compromised. The birth world of humanity has been hosting demonic manifestations beneath our very feet." The implications were staggering. Every Imperial doctrine said that such corruption should be purged with fire and plasma, the entire region sanctified through destruction. But if the Tau were correct, traditional Imperial responses would only make the situation worse. "There's more, Admiral," Voss continued, his mechanical fingers dancing across control interfaces. "The Tau data shows that these structures have been gradually increasing their activity. The pattern suggests they're building towards some kind of event." "What kind of event?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect I didn't want to know the answer. Mien's alien features conveyed deep concern. "We believe the structures are attempting to create a permanent rift between dimensions, Admiral. A gateway that would allow unlimited demonic forces to pour into Terra's oceans. Our projections suggest that without intervention, such a rift will manifest within 8 of your months. 8 months. 8 months until Terra's oceans became a highway for the forces of chaos, spilling demons onto the birth world of humanity like a tide of pure malevolence." "And your solution?" I asked. "Harmony," Mien replied simply. "The entities that built these temples feed on conflict, despair, and hatred, but they cannot tolerate cooperation, hope, and mutual understanding. Our underwater cities are not just settlements, Admiral. They are weapons of pure positive emotion, generating psychic fields that weaken the temple structures and prevent demon manifestation." I stared at the tactical display, watching Tau bioships move in perfect coordination around the ancient structures. Where human vessels would have opened fire, seeking to destroy the threat through superior firepower, the aliens were singing. "Those are hymns," I realized, as our sensors picked up the harmonic frequencies being generated by the Tau fleet. "You're using music as a weapon." "Music, cooperation, the joy of different species working together toward a common goal," Mien confirmed. "These emotions are poison to the entities that would claim your world, Admiral, and they grow stronger when shared between different forms of life." The bridge communication system crackled to life with an incoming priority transmission. "Admiral Chen, this is Lord Admiral Ravensburg. I've reviewed your initial report, and I'm ordering immediate withdrawal of your fleet. Imperial reinforcements will arrive within 12 hours to begin purification bombardment of the affected areas." My blood turned to ice. Traditional Imperial purification would involve plasma bombing the entire region, followed by exterminatus protocols if demon manifestation was confirmed. Billions of gallons of Terra's water would be boiled away. The ocean floor turned to radioactive glass. And according to Tau intelligence, such an attack would provide the exact negative emotions and destructive energy needed to complete the demon summoning. "Lord Admiral, I strongly advise against bombardment protocols," I said into the Vox pickup. "We have intelligence suggesting that violent action will only strengthen the xenos. I mean, the enemy positions. Chen, are you seriously suggesting that we negotiate with xenos forces that have invaded Terra's sovereign waters?" I looked around the bridge at my crew, all of whom had seen the evidence, had felt the truth of the Tau psychic communications. Then I looked at Mien, whose alien eyes held compassion for a species that had spent 10 millennia trying to exterminate her people. "Sir, I'm suggesting that we consider all options before committing to a course of action that might result in unacceptable casualties. Admiral Chen, you are hereby relieved of command pending inquisitorial investigation. Captain Morrison will assume temporary command and withdraw your fleet immediately." Lieutenant Morrison, now Captain Morrison, stood slowly, his young face pale with the weight of sudden responsibility. He looked at me, then at the Tau speaker, then at the tactical display showing ancient structures pulsing with malevolent energy. "Admiral Ravensburg," Morrison said into the Vox pickup, his voice steady despite his obvious fear. "Captain Morrison reporting. Sir, before I execute withdrawal orders, I need to inform you that we have additional intelligence that bears on the tactical situation. Captain, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. Any delay will be considered insubordination." Morrison looked at me again, and I saw the moment when a young Imperial officer made the same choice that had been tearing at my soul for the past day. Sometimes loyalty to humanity required disobedience to Imperial command. "Sir, with respect, The intelligence we've gathered suggests that withdrawal and bombardment will result in the complete corruption of Terra's ocean systems. I'm requesting permission to transmit full tactical data before any military action is taken." The Vox channel went silent for a long moment. "Captain Morrison, you have 5 minutes to transmit your data, but I want that fleet moving within the hour, regardless of what you found down there." Morrison nodded to Communications Officer Vale, who began uploading the complete sensor logs, geological surveys, and psychic resonance readings to Imperial Command. But I knew it wouldn't matter. The Imperium's response to chaos corruption was always the same: burn it all and pray to the Emperor for forgiveness. "There is another option," Mian said quietly, her words reaching only the bridge crew. "Your species could choose to learn instead of destroy. The greater good encompasses all life, Admiral Chen, including humanity." "You're asking us to abandon the Imperium," I said. "We're asking you to save your world," she replied. "The choice is yours, but it must be made soon. The structures grow stronger with each passing day, and our installations can only contain them for so long without additional support." I walked to the viewing port and stared down at the alien installation below us. Tau and human children were swimming together in the clear water, their laughter creating ripples of pure joy that our senses registered as positive psychic energy. It was beautiful, peaceful, everything that the Imperium claimed to fight for, but never seemed to achieve. "What would it mean?" I asked quietly. "If we chose cooperation over conflict?" "It would mean learning to breathe underwater," Mian replied with something that might have been humor. "It would mean accepting that the greater good includes species working together instead of against each other. It would mean healing instead of destruction." Captain Morrison joined me at the viewing port. "Admiral, what are your orders?" I thought about my 40 years of Imperial service, the oaths I'd sworn, the Emperor I'd served without question. Then I thought about the ancient structures pulsing with demonic energy, the Tau cities that offered hope instead of despair, and the children swimming in clean water beneath my ship. "Captain, how many of our crew have families on Terra?" "Nearly all of them, sir. Most have children or grandchildren in the Pacific coastal hives." I nodded slowly. Those children would inherit whatever choice we made today. They would live with the consequences of our decision for generations to come. "Then we choose the future over the past," I said finally. "Signal the Tau installations. Tell them that Terra's naval defense fleet is prepared to discuss expanded cooperation." As alarms began blaring from our communication station, indicating that Imperial reinforcements were already moving to intercept us, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over my soul. Sometimes the most loyal thing a servant could do was to save his master from his own worst instincts, even if it meant learning to swim in alien waters. The transformation of Terra's oceans was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Deepest Covenant Emergency Transmission, Imperial Naval Command. Encryption level, Maximus Priority, Terra Defense. Lord Admiral Ravensburg's face filled the main display, his weathered features twisted with fury and disbelief. "Chen, what in the Emperor's holy name do you think you're doing? My sensors showed Tau vessels surrounding your entire fleet, and now you're talking about expanded cooperation with xenos forces." I stood at the center of the bridge, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of Imperial doctrine pressing down on my shoulders. Around me, my crew worked their stations with the efficiency born of decades of training, but I could see the uncertainty in their movements. They were good Imperial citizens, caught between loyalty to the Imperium and loyalty to Terra itself. "Lord Admiral, the situation has evolved beyond our initial parameters," I replied carefully. "We have confirmed intelligence that traditional Imperial responses will not be effective against the current threat. The only threat I see is an Imperial Admiral consorting with xenos." Ravensburg's voice boomed through the bridge speakers. "You have 30 minutes to disengage from alien contact and return to Imperial-controlled waters, or you will be classified as traitors and dealt with accordingly." 30 minutes. I looked through the viewing ports at the Tau installation below us, where the work of healing Terra's poisoned waters continued. Biomechanical systems processed pollution with impossible efficiency, while Tau and human children played together in the cleanest ocean water Terra had seen in millennia. "Admiral Chen," came Mien's gentle mental voice, "we do not ask you to choose between your loyalty and your world, but we ask you to consider, what would your Emperor truly want? A Terra that burns in purity, or a Terra that lives in harmony? What are you offering exactly?" I asked aloud, knowing that my bridge crew deserved to hear whatever proposal the Tau had to make. Mien materialized beside the tactical display, her flowing robes seeming to move like water, even in the still air of the bridge. "We offer joint stewardship of Terra's oceans, Admiral. Human wisdom combined with Tau technology, working together to heal what has been damaged and protect what remains pure. And in return? In return, we ask only for the right to exist in the deep places where your kind cannot go, and the opportunity to teach your species what we have learned about cooperation and harmony. The greater good encompasses all life, Admiral Chen. It can encompass humanity as well." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "What about the demon structures? How do we deal with those without Imperial reinforcements?" Mien's expression grew serious. "The corruption spreads, Captain. Our latest surveys show 7 new manifestation sites appearing along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Soon, the negative psychic energy will reach critical mass, and no force in the galaxy will be able to prevent a full demonic incursion." She gestured, and the tactical display shifted to show a 3-dimensional map of the Pacific Ocean. Red markers indicated the ancient temple structures, while blue zones showed areas where Tau purification installations were successfully containing the corruption. "But observe," Mien continued, "where our installations work in cooperation with human vessels, the containment is 3 times more effective. The combined positive emotions of different species working toward a common goal create psychic harmonics that the demon entities cannot tolerate." Tech Adept Voss looked up from his sensor arrays, his mechanical voice carrying unusual excitement. "Admiral, the readings confirm this. Where human and Tau vessels operate in close proximity, the warp resonance signatures from the temple structures decrease significantly." I studied the tactical display, my mind racing through the implications. If the Tau were correct, then cooperation between our species wasn't just diplomatically advantageous. It was the only way to prevent Terra's oceans from becoming a gateway for the forces of chaos. "What exactly would joint stewardship entail?" I asked. "Human naval forces would maintain sovereignty over surface waters and traditional shipping lanes," Mien explained. "Tau installations would operate in the deep zones, focusing on purification and demon containment. Both species would share technology, knowledge, and resources to maintain oceanic health. And the ancient structures. Together, we would build a containment network that neutralizes their influence through sustained positive psychic emissions. Not destruction, Admiral. Transformation. We would turn symbols of corruption into foundations for healing." The communication system crackled again. "Chen, this is Admiral Ravensburg. I'm reading massive energy buildups from xenos installations throughout the Pacific. If you don't withdraw immediately, I'm authorized to declare your fleet compromised and initiate purification protocols." I felt the moment of decision approaching like a massive wave. Everything I'd been taught said that cooperation with xenos was heresy, that the purity of human dominion was worth any sacrifice. But everything I'd seen in the past 3 days suggested that such purity might cost us Terra itself. "Mien," I said quietly, "if we agree to this covenant, what guarantees do we have that the Tau won't eventually seek to dominate human populations?" Her alien features conveyed genuine puzzlement. "Admiral, the greater good is not domination, it is harmony. When species work together toward common goals, all prosper. When they fight for dominance, all suffer. This is not ideology, it is observable fact." She gestured again, and the display showed images from Tau-controlled worlds, where humans lived freely alongside alien populations. I saw human settlements that were cleaner and more prosperous than most Imperial hive cities. Human children learning in schools that taught cooperation instead of hatred. Your Emperor teaches that humanity must stand alone against the galaxy, Mien observed. But perhaps your Emperor never saw what humanity could become if it chose to stand with others instead of apart from them. Before I could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Admiral!" called sensor operator Hayes. "Multiple void signatures dropping out of warp. Imperial reinforcements are arriving ahead of schedule." The main display shifted to show the sleek forms of Imperial warships materializing in Terra's upper atmosphere. 3 battle barges, a dozen cruisers, and what looked like an Inquisition black ship were forming a battle formation above the Pacific. "They're moving fast," Morrison observed grimly. Estimated time to weapons range, 47 minutes. I looked around the bridge at faces I'd known for years. Good people who'd followed me into the depths of the ocean without question, who deserved better than to be caught between Imperial doctrine and the survival of their homeworld. "All hands, this is Admiral Chen," I announced over the ship's Vox system. "You've all seen the evidence. You know what's at stake. In 30 minutes, you'll have a choice to make. Follow Imperial orders that may doom Terra's oceans to demonic corruption, or stand with an alien species that offers hope for healing our world." I paused, feeling the weight of history settling on my shoulders. "I want every crew member to understand. I'm not asking you to betray the Emperor. I'm asking you to serve humanity's future instead of its past. The choice is yours, and there will be no recriminations for those who choose loyalty to the Imperium over loyalty to Terra." The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle hum of ship systems and the distant sound of Tau biovessels moving through the water below us. Captain Morrison was the first to speak. "Admiral, the crew has already voted. We stand with Terra." I felt tears threatening at the corners of my eyes. "And the other ships in our fleet? The enduring faith and the Terra's pride have signaled their agreement," Morrison reported. "Admiral, 37,000 naval personnel are prepared to make this stand." 37,000 souls choosing an uncertain future over a doctrine that had ruled humanity for 10 millennia. The magnitude of what we were doing finally hit me. "Mien," I said, turning to the Tau speaker. "If we do this, there's no going back. The Imperium will declare us traitors. We'll be hunted across the galaxy. The ocean is vast, Admiral Chen, and there are many worlds where the greater good offers sanctuary to those who choose cooperation over conflict. But more importantly, Terra will live, and the children swimming in these waters will inherit a world of possibility instead of corruption." I walked to the communications station and picked up the fleet-wide Vox transmitter. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships. In 15 minutes, we will be contacted by Imperial reinforcements demanding our surrender. Those forces believe they are serving the Emperor by cleansing this region with plasma fire. They don't know that such an attack will complete the demon summoning and corrupt Terra's oceans beyond redemption." I paused, looking out at the clean water where human and Tau children played together. "Today, we choose to serve the Emperor's true will, the protection and prosperity of humanity. We choose to heal instead of destroy, to cooperate instead of dominate, to swim in new waters instead of drowning in old hatreds." The response came immediately, not just from my own crew, but from every ship in the fleet. 37,000 voices raised in unison, speaking words that would echo through history. For Terra, for the future, for the greater good. As Imperial warships began their descent toward the Pacific, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades of military service. Hope. The transformation of Terra's oceans was no longer a possibility. It was happening now, in this moment, as human and Tau vessels moved into defensive formations that would either save our world or damn us all. Sometimes, the most loyal thing a servant could do was to save his master from his own worst instincts, even if it meant learning to breathe underwater in the vast ocean of possibility that lay before us. Chapter 5. The Turning Tide Battle Report. Pacific Theater Classification. Heretical Archive. Author: Former Admiral Marcus Chen. The first shots fired in the battle for Terra's soul came not from Imperial guns, but from the ocean itself. As Admiral Ravensburg's fleet descended toward the Pacific, their sensors focused on what they believed were xenos invasion forces. The ancient demon structures beneath the waves began to pulse with renewed energy. The negative emotions radiating from the Imperial ships, hatred, fear, determination to purge the alien, fed directly into the warp-touched temples below. "Admiral!" called Tech Adept Voss, his mechanical voice tight with alarm. "The temple structures are showing massive energy spikes. Warp resonance is increasing exponentially." I watched the tactical display as red warning indicators spread across the ocean floor like a virus. Each temple was drawing power from the approaching battle, growing stronger with every moment that Imperial and Tau forces prepared for conflict. "Mian," I said urgently, "how long before the demon manifestations begin?" The Tau speaker's normally serene expression showed genuine fear. "If this level of negative psychic energy continues, Admiral, we estimate breach manifestation within 23 minutes. Once the first demon entities materialize, the cascade effect will be unstoppable. 23 minutes until Terra's birth world became a battlefield between humanity and the forces of hell itself." "Admiral Chen," came Ravensburg's voice over the Vox channel. "This is your final warning. Disengage from xenos contact immediately or face the consequences of treason." I looked around the bridge at my crew, people who had trusted me enough to risk everything on the chance that cooperation might succeed, where 10 millennia of warfare had failed. Then I looked at the display showing ancient evil stirring in response to Imperial hatred. "Lord Admiral Ravensburg," I replied, "I'm transmitting real-time sensor data of the demon manifestation sites. Sir, if your fleet opens fire, you won't be fighting xenos. You'll be completing a chaos summoning that will doom Terra's oceans." "Chen, whatever xenos lies you've been fed, I won't..." His words were cut off as every sensor array in both fleets screamed alarms simultaneously. From the deepest trenches of the Pacific, something was rising. The first demon to breach the barrier between dimensions was a thing of tentacles and eyes, its form shifting between states of matter as it struggled to maintain cohesion in the material realm. It rose from the Mariana Trench like a nightmare made flesh, its psychic scream echoing through every mind within 1,000 kilometers. "Emperor preserve us," whispered Captain Morrison, his face pale as he watched the entity's emergence on the tactical display. But the daemon's manifestation was incomplete, unstable. The positive psychic emissions from the Tau installations and the cooperative human-alien vessels were acting like acid on its form, preventing full materialization. "Admiral," Mian's mental voice carried desperate urgency, "the entity cannot maintain cohesion while human and Tau work in harmony. But if the Imperial fleet attacks, the negative emotions will provide the final energy needed for complete manifestation." "Ravensburg!" I shouted into the Vox pickup. "Stand down your weapons. Any hostile action will strengthen the demon entities." "I don't know what xenos trickery you think you're..." The demon's psychic shriek cut through his words like a blade, and every person in both fleets felt the touch of absolute malevolence. This wasn't human, wasn't alien. It was something that hated all life, all hope, all possibility of peace or growth. "Sweet Emperor," Ravensburg's voice came through the static, shaken for the first time since I'd known him. "Chen, what is that thing?" "It's what the Tau have been fighting for 3 years while we remained ignorant," I replied grimly. "And Lord Admiral, there are 6 more manifestation sites showing similar energy buildups." The tactical display painted a picture of horror. 7 points of light were pulsing along the Pacific Ring of Fire, each one representing a demon entity struggling to break through into reality. And with each moment of tension between the Imperial and Tau fleets, they grew stronger. "There is still hope." Mien's mental voice reached both bridges simultaneously. "If your fleets can work together instead of against each other, the combined positive psychic energy will be sufficient to banish these entities permanently." "Work together with xenos," came another voice over the Imperial command channel. Inquisitor Vex of the Black Ship, his tone dripping with disgust. "Admiral Ravensburg, I am taking command of this operation under the authority of the Holy Ordos. All vessels are to open fire immediately." "Inquisitor, wait!" Ravensburg shouted. "There's something down there that..." But it was too late. The black ship's weapons batteries began charging, their malevolent energy signatures feeding directly into the demon's summoning circles below. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. All 7 manifestation sites erupted simultaneously, disgorging entities that made the first demon look like a gentle pet. Tentacled monstrosities, the size of Imperial cruisers, burst from the ocean depths, their forms wreathed in warp fire and existential hatred. "All vessels, emergency evasive maneuvers," I commanded. But even as my fleet scattered, I knew conventional tactics were useless against enemies that existed partially outside reality. The largest demon, a thing of eyes and mouths that hurt to perceive directly, turned its attention toward the Imperial fleet. When it spoke, its words bypassed the ears entirely, carving themselves directly into every mind within range. At last, the ancient covenant is fulfilled. The waters of Terra run red with the tears of the corpse emperor. "Inquisitor Vex," I transmitted on all frequencies. "Your attack has given these entities exactly what they needed to manifest fully. Every shot you fire makes them stronger, but the Inquisitor's response was predictably fanatical. The Emperor protects. All vessels, maximum firepower, purge the demon." I watched in horror as the Imperial fleet opened up with everything they had. Lance batteries, plasma cannons, cyclonic torpedoes. The firepower that could have cracked a planet was focused on the demon entities with righteous fury, and every shot made them larger, more solid, more real. "They're feeding on the violence," Morrison shouted over the sound of alarms. "Admiral, the demon entities are absorbing the weapon energy and converting it to physical mass." The creatures were growing before our eyes, their forms becoming more stable and terrifying with each Imperial attack. What had begun as partially manifested horrors was rapidly becoming a full demon incursion into Terra's reality. "Admiral Chen," Mien's mental voice cut through the chaos, "there is still one chance. If human and Tau vessels can form cooperative defensive patterns, we can generate enough positive psychic resonance to destabilize their manifestation matrix." "What kind of patterns?" I demanded, even as demon tentacles began reaching toward both Imperial and Tau ships. "Formation, Kaoyon. The patient hunter's trap. Your vessels must interweave with ours in precise geometric arrangements that promote harmony between our species. The emotional resonance of successful cooperation will be toxic to these entities." I looked at the tactical display, seeing Imperial ships scattering in confusion as their weapons proved not just useless, but actively harmful. Some were already falling back toward Terra's atmosphere, their commanders finally understanding that this was not a battle that could be won through firepower. "All Terran Defense Fleet vessels," I transmitted, "form up on the Tau bioships in cooperative formation pattern. Morrison, transmit our movement algorithms to the alien vessels. We need perfect coordination." "Admiral," Morrison said urgently, "Lord Admiral Ravensburg is signaling. He's requesting permission to join the formation." I felt a surge of hope. If even one Imperial commander could overcome 10 millennia of xenophobic conditioning. "Granted. Signal all Imperial vessels. Anyone willing to work with the Tau in defense of Terra is welcome in our formation." What happened next was something I'd never seen in 40 years of Imperial service. Human and Tau vessels began moving together in perfect harmony, their navigation systems linked through shared algorithms that required absolute trust between alien species. The effect on the demon entities was immediate and dramatic. Where before they had grown stronger with each act of violence, now they began to shriek and writhe as the positive psychic energy of successful cooperation washed over them like acid. "Impossible! The ancient hatreds, the eternal wars. Why do you not feed us with your suffering?" "Because," I said aloud, knowing that every being in both fleets could hear me, humanity's greatest strength was never our ability to destroy our enemies. It was our ability to turn enemies into allies. The largest demon entity turned its countless eyes toward my ship, and when it spoke, its mental voice was filled with confusion and growing fear. "The young races, learning to sing in harmony. This was not foreseen. More Imperial ships were joining the formation now, their crews overcoming a lifetime of indoctrination as they saw the demon entities weakening. Even some of Inquisitor Vex's black ship escorts were breaking formation to coordinate with Tau biovessels. Admiral, Mien's mental voice carried wonder and hope in equal measure. The resonance pattern is reaching cascade harmonics. If we can maintain this level of cooperation for just a few more minutes, I watched the tactical display as human and alien vessels danced together in patterns that should have been impossible. Imperial cruisers moving in perfect synchronization with Tau bioships, their crews learning to trust each other's movements with the absolute faith required for void warfare. And with each successful maneuver, with each moment of cooperation between species that had been taught to hate each other, the demon entities grew weaker. The first to collapse was the smallest horror, its form dissolving into warp smoke as the positive psychic energy overwhelmed its manifestation matrix. Then the second, then the third, until finally only the largest entity remained, its countless eyes fixed on our combined fleets with something that might have been respect. Clever, the young races learn quickly, but the ancient hunger remains. We will return when hatred blooms again. With a final psychic shriek that tasted of frustrated malevolence, the last demon entity dissolved back into the warp, leaving Terra's oceans clean and clear for the first time in millennia. In the silence that followed, I realized that everything had changed. Humans and Tau had fought together, had saved Terra together, had proven that cooperation could achieve what violence never could. The transformation of Terra's oceans was no longer a dream. It was the beginning of a new age. Chapter 6, New Depths. Personal Journal. Day 47 of the New Covenant. Marcus Chen, former Admiral, current Ocean Guardian. The children are teaching us things we never knew about swimming. I write this from the observation deck of New Harmony, the first human-Tau hybrid vessel ever constructed. Through the bioluminescent walls, I can see schools of fish that have returned to waters that were dead zones only weeks ago. But more importantly, I can see human and Tau youngsters swimming together, their laughter creating ripples of psychic energy that our senses register as pure joy. 7 weeks have passed since the battle for Terra's soul, and the changes have been beyond anything I could have imagined. The Imperial Admiralty officially declared me a traitor, but Admiral Ravensburg and 16 other senior commanders have quietly joined what we're calling the Ocean Guardian Initiative. We're not rebels exactly, we're healers. Guardian Chen, called Dr. Sarah Kim from the research station, using the title that had replaced my Imperial rank. The latest purification reports are remarkable. Pollution levels in the Pacific have dropped by 67% in just 43 days. I nodded, but I was watching something more important than statistics. Through the clear water, I could see one of the new joint settlements, a community where human families lived alongside Tau water castes in bioengineered structures that filtered toxins while providing homes for both species. The architecture was beautiful in a way that neither human nor Tau design could achieve alone. Flowing organic curves that accommodated Tau aesthetics, combined with practical human engineering that focused on efficiency and durability. Children from both species attended the same schools, learning about cooperation not as an ideal, but as a daily reality. Dr. Kim, I said, what's the psychological evaluation status on the integration communities? Fascinating results, Guardian. Children who grow up in mixed communities show significantly higher problem-solving abilities, increased empathy, and enhanced creativity. It's as if exposure to different perspectives literally expands their mental capabilities. I thought about my own grandchildren, who were part of the first generation to grow up seeing Tau as neighbors, rather than enemies. They spoke basic Tauva as easily as Gothic, and their games involved cooperation scenarios that would have been inconceivable to Imperial doctrine. Guardian Chen, came a familiar mental voice, as Mien approached through the water with her characteristic grace. The Tau speaker had become something between a diplomat and a friend over the past weeks. The Earthcast reports are ready for your review. I turned to the main display as holographic projections showed the scope of the transformation. Across Terra's oceans, 47 joint installations were working to heal damage that had accumulated over millennia. Kelp forests were being replanted in areas that had been oceanic deserts. Fish populations were recovering at rates that astounded marine biologists. Even the weather patterns were improving as clean oceans began properly regulating Terra's climate again. "The Emperor's truth," I murmured, borrowing an old imperial phrase with new meaning. I never imagined our world could be so alive. "The ocean connects all things," Miyen responded, her mental voice carrying warmth. "When the waters are healthy, all life prospers. Your species spent so long fighting for territory that you forgot how much more there is when species work together." "What about resistance from the Imperium?" I asked. "Intelligence reports suggest that an Inquisition task force is being assembled." Mien's expression grew serious. "Inquisitor Vex has been gathering support for what he calls the Terra Reclamation Crusade. He argues that cooperation with xenos represents the ultimate corruption of humanity's birth world." I felt the familiar weight of worry settle in my chest. The ocean communities were thriving, but they were also vulnerable. If the Imperium decided to cleanse Terra's waters with orbital bombardment, all of our progress could be destroyed in a matter of hours. "How long before they move against us?" "Our intelligence suggests 3 months, perhaps 4. "But Guardian Chen, there may be allies you do not expect." Before I could ask what she meant, the communications system activated with an incoming transmission from Terra's surface. "Guardian Chen, this is Cardinal Matthias of the Ecclesiarchy. I request permission to visit your installations for theological consultation." I exchanged glances with Dr. Kim. A cardinal of the Imperial Church wanting to visit alien settlements was unprecedented. It could be a trap, or it could be something else entirely. "Cardinal Matthias, you are welcome in our waters," I replied carefully. "Though I should warn you that our communities follow principles that some might consider unconventional. Guardian, I have spent 70 years preaching the Emperor's will. But I have also spent 70 years watching humanity tear itself apart in his name. Perhaps it is time to consider what the Emperor truly intended for his children." 6 hours later, I found myself swimming alongside a cardinal of the Ecclesiarchy and a Tau watercast engineer, watching them discuss the theology of environmental stewardship, while human and alien children played around us. Cardinal Matthias was a tall, dignified man whose cybernetic augmentations allowed him to breathe underwater for extended periods. His presence in the settlement had initially caused some concern among the Tau, but his genuine curiosity about their philosophy had quickly won them over. "The Emperor's design is clearly manifest in the complexity of oceanic ecosystems," he was saying, his amplified voice carrying easily through the water. "But human stewardship has failed catastrophically. Perhaps he intended for us to learn from other species rather than dominate them." The Tau engineer, Porla Tau Kais, responded with careful diplomacy. "Your Emperor's teachings speak of unity among humans. Our philosophy extends that unity to all life. Perhaps there is common ground in the desire for harmony." I watched the Cardinal consider this, his aged features thoughtful. "The Imperial Creed teaches that the Emperor protects humanity from alien contamination. But what if the real contamination is the hatred that prevents us from learning and growing?" It was a dangerous question for a cardinal to ask, and we all knew it. But surrounded by the evidence of what cooperation could achieve, clean water, healthy ecosystems, children growing up without fear or hatred, even the most orthodox imperial theology began to bend toward new possibilities. "Cardinal," I said gently, "what would happen if the Ecclesiarchy officially recognized the Ocean Guardian communities?" "Civil war," he replied without hesitation. "The orthodox factions would declare me a heretic, and the Inquisition would move to purge every installation. But Guardian Chen, sometimes preventing a greater catastrophe requires accepting a smaller one." He gestured toward a group of children who were learning to tend a kelp forest, their techniques combining human agricultural knowledge with Tau biotechnology. "Those children will inherit a world we leave them. The question is, will it be a world of endless war or a world of endless possibility?" That evening, in the depths of a settlement that officially didn't exist according to Imperial records, Cardinal Matthias held the first interspecies religious service in human history. Tau water spirits were honored alongside Imperial saints, and the prayers were for healing rather than victory. I found myself thinking about the oath I'd sworn 40 years ago to serve the Emperor, to protect humanity, to die before allowing harm to come to Terra. The exact words I'd spoken were, "I swear by Terra and the Emperor who protects her, to serve humanity's future, to guard against all that would harm our species, and to ensure that the children of Terra inherit a galaxy worthy of their potential." Perhaps I hadn't broken my oath after all. Perhaps I'd simply found a new way to fulfill it. "Guardian," came Dr. Kim's voice over the settlement's communication system. "We're receiving reports from installations across the Pacific. Fish populations have reached levels not seen since the age of technology. Ocean temperatures are stabilizing. Even the atmospheric composition is improving as healthy seas begin proper gas exchange." I looked up through the crystal-clear water at Terra's sky, where stars shone with a brightness that pollution had hidden for millennia. Somewhere among those stars, the Imperium continued its endless wars, burning worlds in the name of human purity. But here, in the depths of Terra's healing oceans, human and Tau children were learning that cooperation could create wonders that neither species could achieve alone. The transformation was spreading, one community at a time, one generation at a time, and perhaps eventually, one galaxy at a time. "The ocean connects all things," Mariana had said. Looking up at those distant stars, I began to understand that the lesson of Terra's waters might someday reach far beyond our small blue world. The greater good encompassed all life. Even humanity was beginning to learn how to swim. Chapter 7. Rising Waters Intelligence Report. Ocean Guardian Network. Classification: Restricted Distribution Report. Date: Day 127 of the New Covenant. The Inquisition fleet arrived on a Tuesday, screaming down from Terra's upper atmosphere like falling stars of righteous fury. I watched from the command center of Deep Haven, our largest underwater city, as 97 Imperial warships took position above the Pacific. Their weapon signatures painted the ocean surface with targeting beams, each one capable of boiling away cubic kilometers of water in a matter of seconds. Guardian Chen, reported communications specialist Torres, her voice tight with controlled fear. "We're receiving transmission from the Inquisition flagship Righteous Purification. Inquisitor Vex is demanding immediate surrender of all human personnel and complete evacuation of Tau forces." I looked around the command center at the faces of people who had chosen healing over hatred, cooperation over conquest. Human naval officers worked alongside Tau watercast technicians, their movements synchronized by months of shared purpose. Children, both human and Tau, watched from the observation galleries, their young faces showing confusion at the concept of species fighting each other. "What's our defensive capability?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Captain Morrison, now security chief for the Guardian Network, consulted his tactical displays. 43 bioships, 18 converted Imperial vessels, and the settlement defense grids, against 97 Imperial warships. He shook his head grimly. "We might delay them for an hour, maybe 2. And if they begin orbital bombardment? Every settlement in the Pacific will be destroyed within 6 hours. Guardian, we need to evacuate the civilian populations to the deepest installations." I nodded, but my mind was working through possibilities that conventional military thinking wouldn't consider. The Ocean Guardian communities represented something new in human history. Not just technological advancement, but social evolution. Children who had grown up seeing cooperation as natural. Adults who had learned that strength came from unity rather than domination. Perhaps it was time to test whether that evolution could survive contact with the old hatred. "Open a channel to all Guardian installations," I ordered. Full network activation. Torres's fingers moved across her console, and suddenly I was connected to every Ocean Guardian community across Terra's oceans. 47 settlements, housing nearly 2 million humans and 500,000 Tau. all linked through biotechnological communication networks that made Imperial Vox systems seem primitive. "This is Guardian Chen to all installations," I began, feeling the weight of history pressing down on my shoulders. "The Imperium has come to reclaim Terra's waters. They offer us a choice: abandon our Tau partners and return to Imperial doctrine, or face purification through orbital bombardment." Responses came immediately from across the network. "Guardian, this is Coral Dream Settlement. Our population vote is unanimous. We stand with our Tau neighbors." "Azure Deep reporting. Human and Tau families refuse separation. We're prepared to defend our homes." "Pacific Hope here. The children don't understand why anyone would want to stop the healing. We're with you, Guardian." One by one, every settlement reported the same decision. 2.5 million souls choosing an uncertain future over a return to the failed patterns of the past. "Mien," I called to the Tau speaker, who was coordinating evacuation procedures with her watercast engineers. "Are your people prepared for what's coming?" "We knew this day would come, Guardian Chen," she replied, her mental voice carrying sadness but no fear. "The greater good sometimes requires sacrifice to protect what is being built for future generations." "But this isn't just about sacrifice," I said, an idea beginning to form. "Mien, how many Tau across the galaxy know about the Terra communities?" "Many, Guardian. Our success here has been studied by 17 Sept worlds and 3 sphere expansion fleets. The integration model we've developed is being considered for implementation wherever human and Tau populations encounter each other." I felt a surge of hope. The Ocean Guardian network wasn't just 47 settlements. It was a proof of concept that was already spreading across Tau space. Even if the Imperium destroyed every community on Terra, the idea would survive. "Torres, connect me to the Inquisition flagship." "Guardian, are you sure that's—" "Do it." The main display shifted to show Inquisitor Vex, his augmented features twisted with fanatic determination. Behind him, I could see the bridge of a ship designed for one purpose: the complete destruction of anything deemed impure by Imperial doctrine. "Chen." Vex's voice dripped with disgust. "You have 1 hour to surrender yourself and all human personnel for purification. The xenos will be exterminated, and Terra's waters will be cleansed of their taint." "Inquisitor," I replied calmly, "before you begin your purification, I'd like you to see what you're planning to destroy." Without waiting for his response, I activated the network-wide visual feed. Every settlement, every community, every family appeared on screens throughout both fleets. Human and Tau children playing together, families sharing meals, scientists working to heal centuries of environmental damage. "This is corruption," Vex snarled. "Humanity's purity is being contaminated by alien influence." "No, Inquisitor," I said firmly. "Humanity's potential is being realized through cooperation instead of conflict. Look at the data streams. Crime rates down 93%, educational achievement up 400%. Life expectancy increased by an average of 47 years. I gestured to the displays showing Terra's healing oceans. Fish populations at levels not seen since the dark age of technology. Atmospheric composition improving daily. Even the climate is stabilizing as healthy seas resume proper function. "Lies!" Vex shouted. "Xenos propaganda designed to weaken human resolve." But I could see other faces on the Imperial bridges, and not all of them showed the same fanatic certainty. Admiral Ravensburg was studying the environmental data with growing amazement. Captain Torres of the Emperor's Will was watching human children laugh and play without fear. Even some of Vex's own Inquisition officers seemed troubled by what they were seeing. "Inquisitor," I continued, "I'm transmitting the complete psychological and medical profiles of our communities. Every measurement of human welfare shows dramatic improvement. The question is, does the Imperium serve humanity, or does humanity serve the Imperium?" The connection went silent for several minutes. When Vex reappeared, his face was flushed with rage. "You have corrupted these populations beyond redemption. The Exterminatus order is approved. Terra's oceans will burn." I felt ice form in my veins. Exterminatus, the complete sterilization of a planetary biosphere. They weren't just planning to destroy the settlements. They were planning to kill every living thing in Terra's oceans. All installations, immediate evacuation to maximum depth, I ordered. This is not a drill. But as Guardian families began moving toward the deepest shelters, something unexpected happened. The Imperial fleet began to fracture. Guardian, Torres reported, her voice filled with amazement. 17 Imperial vessels are breaking formation. They're moving into defensive positions around our settlements. On the display, I watched Admiral Ravensburg's flagship Terra's Glory position itself between the Inquisition fleet and Coral Dream settlement. Behind him, 16 other Imperial vessels followed suit, their commanders making the same choice that had torn at my soul months ago. "This is Admiral Ravensburg to all Imperial forces," came a transmission on open channels. "I have reviewed the evidence. These communities represent the future of humanity, not its corruption. Any attempt to destroy them will be met with defensive action." "Ravensburg!" Vex's voice cracked with fury. "I order you to stand down. You are in violation of direct Inquisition orders." "Inquisitor," Ravensburg replied calmly. "My oath was to serve the Emperor and protect humanity. These communities are the most successful human settlements I've seen in 40 years of service. If protecting them makes me a traitor, then I am proud to be a traitor." The Imperial fleet was now divided into two groups, those loyal to Inquisition doctrine and those loyal to what they had seen with their own eyes. But even with Ravensburg's support, we were still outnumbered nearly 3-1. That's when the ocean itself began to respond. From every settlement, from every installation, from every community where human and Tau had learned to work together, a new kind of energy began to emanate. It wasn't technology, wasn't weapons. It was something that our sensors could barely measure. "Guardian," called Dr. Kim from the research station. "We're detecting massive psychic resonance patterns across the entire network. It's similar to what we observed during the Daemon incursion, but different, stronger. The energy was hope made manifest. 2.5 million souls choosing cooperation over conflict, harmony over hatred, future over past. And that choice was creating something that even the Tau had never seen before." "Guardian Chen," Mayen's mental voice carried wonder and awe. "The network resonance is approaching cascade harmonics. Your species and mine, working together, are generating psychic energies that transcend anything in Tau philosophy." I looked at the tactical displays as the psychic emanations from our communities began to interact with the warp currents around Terra. Where demon entities had once threatened to break through, now barriers of pure positive emotion were forming, protecting not just the settlements, but the entire planetary system. "Inquisitor Vex," I transmitted to the Inquisition flagship. "You have a choice. You can destroy these communities and leave Terra defenseless against the next demon incursion, or you can learn from what we've built here." "I will not be lectured by traitors and xenos," Vex snarled. "All vessels, open fire." But as the first Inquisition ships began to charge their weapons, something extraordinary happened. The psychic emanations from the Ocean Guardian network began to interfere with their targeting systems. Not violently, not destructively. The energy was so focused on harmony and cooperation that it simply couldn't support systems designed for destruction. "Sir!" came a panicked voice from Vex's bridge. "Weapon systems are experiencing cascade failures. The machine spirits are refusing to fire on civilian targets." I realized what was happening. The positive psychic energy generated by human-Tau cooperation was so antithetical to violence that it was affecting the machine spirits of the Imperial vessels, inspiring them to refuse participation in destruction. "This is impossible," Vex raged. "Machine spirits obey Imperial command." "Not when that command violates their fundamental purpose," I replied. "Even your ship's machine spirit recognizes that we're trying to heal Terra, not harm it." The standoff continued for 3 more hours, with Vex's fleet unable to fire and Ravensburg's growing coalition protecting the settlements. But the real victory came when reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. The Ocean Guardian model wasn't just spreading among Tau populations. It was inspiring human colonies throughout Imperial space. Worlds that had been torn apart by conflict were requesting Tau assistance in healing their environments. Even some Space Marine chapters were reporting successful cooperation with Tau forces against common demon threats. The transformation that had begun in Terra's oceans was becoming a galactic phenomenon. As the sun set over the Pacific, painting the clean waters gold and crimson, I realized that we had won something more important than a military victory. We had proven that evolution was possible, that species could transcend their limitations through cooperation rather than conquest. The greater good wasn't just Tau philosophy anymore, it was becoming the future of the galaxy.